this is Melissa with Overcomer Ministries, and I am behind the camera today. We have Ken and April Polm, and they are with Big Boy Men's Ministry and Abundant Grace. And so we're going to chat with them today. So Ken, let's see. Let's see. The last time I seen you before today was high school. So from graduation to just start with your life from there.
Oh Lord, what a journey that's been. So graduation, I moved from Kabul, went to Mount Grove, graduated from there, and that's kind of where my life really turned for the worse. And found at the age of 16 or 17, I found the drug called meth, and really got hooked onto it, and just kind of went on this path of destruction for the next, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 years.
So how old were you?
Well, I was probably 16 the first time I actually used the drug with the needle, but I smoked it a couple times prior to that. But so probably 16, 17 when I really first got into it, and it was something that I really loved, and it just took a hold of me, and didn't realize the destruction it was going to cause.
So what was it that made you want to try it? Was there, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I had influencers in my life. You know, I had an uncle that was I really looked up to. I respected him, and I wanted to be like him, and so I wanted to do everything that he was doing. And that was just something that he done, and it was more influence, so it was kind of a struggle. I remember being fearful of the drug, but still yet I still stepped into it, not knowing what was going to be the outcome. I stepped into it, and once I got into it, I started being more like him, and he's the one that introduced marijuana to me at a very young age, 13, 14 years old, and just kind of ran with it from there.
And so April, where did you go to school?
Mountain Grove.
Okay, so that's where you all met, Mountain Grove?
Yeah, he was best friends with my brother.
Oh. Yeah. Is that why you were best friends with her brother?
No, that was
because you was interested
right.
in...
I was best friends with the brother. This was just a bonus. It was just a bonus. Yeah,
I guess.
So how old were you guys when you met?
When we first met, I think I was 16.
Yeah, 16. I was probably 18.
Because me and my brother, we lived in separate households. He lived with my father, and I lived with my mom. We didn't have the same mom, but we had the same dad. And so I met him one time when I just went up there to see my dad, and
The rest was
history. I guess. No, not really.
So were either one of yous raised in a Christian household?
No, I wasn't.
And had you heard of Jesus? Or?
Yeah, my parents, we went to church periodically when it was convenient, or just, on and off, so it's not that I wasn't exposed to it. My grandmother was a Christian woman, so it's not that I wasn't exposed to it, because it was, so.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. I remember as a kid we moved to Ohio, and we were only up there for a little while. And I remember this man, I still remember his name. His name was Richard. And he would come by. We were living in a trailer court, and my dad was a truck driver. And I remember Sunday mornings he would bring a roll of lifesavers. And but I was just a young kid, and I remember him. I remember his name, and I remember the lifesavers. So every time he would come and pick us up, I'd always want to go for the lifesavers. The church thing didn't excite me even as a kid, but I remember that.
But now you can look back on it and whether you realize it or not, he was planting a little seed.
Yeah, yeah, That's cool. It was kind of a. I remember my older sister. She was I think she really enjoyed going, but I remember as a kid I hated being there, but I always wanted the lifesavers. So, but.
That's why they hand out candy at church.
Right.
I know, right?
Get them in there to plant a seed, right?
Yeah.
So
whatever it takes.
Right.
So, what kind of homes were you were you raised in good homes? Were you raised in abusive homes?
I
Is that
was-
something you want to talk about?
No.
I was raised in a good home. You know, the man that I called dad, he adopted me when I was like 4, and he was my best friend. You know, but I was raised in a good family, a close family. You know, where you said I love you. You know, no matter what. You know, if you were in the store and you were parting ways, you gave a hug, kiss, I love you. You know, so and everything was a reason to have a family gathering and celebrate. You know, I mean, and it was just a really close knit family. You know, and so that's I was absolutely raised in a good family, in a good household, in a good environment. So
I was raised with a good family, with good parents. I mean, I remember my grandparents being like the cornerstone of every. I mean, it was like every Sunday, or just throughout the week. I remember my grandparents being the cornerstone of our family. You know, it was kind of we were close growing up, but there was 8 of us kids, and we grew up. We didn't have much, but mom and dad they struggled. With just 8. Can you imagine 8 kids? Mm-hmm. But it was tough. But yeah, it was tough.
So you guys met in Mountain Grove, and so how did it go from there?
Well, the moment that I met her, she obviously fell in love.
Oh, please.
But no.
No, I didn't.
That's what they all say.
Right.
No, I didn't.
But no, honestly, the moment that I met her, I just knew. I told her, right off the bat, I was going to marry her. And I fell head over heels with her.
I thought he was crazy.
But,
I was like, whatever.
That's
anyway.
funny you say that, because when my mom and dad, they grew up in church and stuff together, they didn't date. And before they were even dating, my dad told my mom, "I'm going to marry you." And she was like, "Yeah, right."
Yeah. Talking about
Well, so I didn't know, but I look back now, I actually prophesied this, right? Because, right?
You didn't even know what that word was then. I mean, come on.
But anyway, it was, when I first met her, we went out a few times, and I remember a couple years after that, I remember where we were at, and she showed up there, and she was sitting next to me. She was sitting on the floor, and I looked at her that day too, and I told her, I said, "I'm going to marry a girl just like you." And come to find out, it was actually her that I married. So, but anyway, it was so it's been a journey. We've been on this. We've been married now for 32 years, together for 34, and
That's a big accomplishment.
It's huge, Mm-hmm. And so it was I don't know. I was connected to her. I really fell head over heels in love with her when I first met her, and so it wasn't. We would see each other just periodically, for about a 2-year period, and then we finally we were finally able to get to a point where we didn't start out healthy for sure, and it was unhealthy start for us for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad start, but it was definitely, looking back now, and knowing what we know now, it was definitely unhealthy. For the first 10 years, it was unhealthy, but it wasn't terrible. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of good times. We were helpmates to each other. We were partners. We worked together.
Shut that door.
Yeah.
Welcome to city life.
We worked together, went to work together, woke up together, went to work together, came home together, and we got along so well. So well. We were friends, and
So at this time, were you using?
Mm-mm.
No, so I had actually quit when we actually got together. I quit drinking, quit the drugs, quit chasing anything and everything out there, and at that time in my life, when I walked away from all that stuff, I did that because she was worth it.
Mm-hmm.
that was my view of her.
And was that your stipulation? Like, listen, I'm not.
No, not really.
Did you know?
No, I really. I knew, that he was kind of a wild guy, but I could tell that he was ready to settle down, you know, to make that commitment, you know, definitely, you know, be a family man. So, I mean, it didn't, I wasn't worried. It wasn't something I thought about. It wasn't, you know, none of that. And even, you know, when it did start, I mean, I didn't know for a long time, but, no, I mean, we were raising our kids. We were, you know.
How many kids do you have?
We have 3 together, and then he has 2 from previous, and so we got 5 kids altogether. We have a lot of extras, you know, a lot of adopted kids, you know, that we love dearly, and they're a huge part of our family as well. So, I mean, honestly, to answer that question, I don't know how many kids we got.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a bunch.
But we love every minute of it. You know, we were very grateful and very blessed in that respect. You know, but we were raising our kids and you know, doing what families do. You know, I guess you call it living the dream. You know, we bought a house. We had the cars. You know, just all of that. Everything that, you know, people try to acquire, I guess, in life. I started taking our kids to church when they were little. Of course, he worked a lot, so he didn't go with us, but it still wasn't bad. You know,
What made you decide to start taking your kids to church?
I like church. You know, I like church then, I like it now. And I just, you know, met a good church family and started going and just enjoyed it. Start being involved. So.
Okay, so how did the decline start, or take us there a little bit?
Well, you know, life started setting in, right? The grind of raising kids, working all the time. We grew apart. You know, there was a time that infidelity happened, and just kind of sent that sent me in a downward spiral really quick.
Still the influencer.
Through that,
You know.
I found myself getting depressed. It was a struggle to just get through each day. It was probably one of the roughest times in my life. Sitting here looking back at what life was actually like back then, it was you know, where
Long hours.
getting to a place where I felt that I'd lost my best friend, and where you ever have a physical pain, right? You know where that pain's at, where it's coming from, but the emotional pain I didn't know how to deal with, and so that just kind of set me on this pace of real destruction for the next 20 years. But that's where it began, and it really got out of hand really quick, and yeah.
And so you stuck in there for, guys still stayed married, stayed together for...
We just lived 2 different lifestyles, which for several years, though, to begin with, you know, I mean, I didn't know, you know, I didn't understand the drugs. I never lived in that environment. You know, just, my brother in '95 was murdered because of that lifestyle.
Oh, wow.
And so that turned my heart very cold to something I didn't understand. Didn't understand, you know, addicts, didn't understand the lifestyle, didn't understand drugs, period, didn't really know a lot about it. And so my heart turned cold, and so from that point forward, it was, you know, I hated drugs. I hated everybody who did it. I hated what it took from me. I most certainly looked at it as that, and as, you know, those who did it as those people. You know, had no compassion towards anyone that did drugs, you know, or lived that lifestyle.
Yeah. So what was the worst, like the bottom for you guys?
Oh Lord, you know, it was. So I became extremely violent in every aspect. There was a lot of physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse. It was. I became a person that I just never was, and it happened pretty quick, and so from there it just kind of it came to the point where I lived a life of you hurt me, I'm gonna hurt you, and I literally lived my life that way in every aspect of it, and so I mean I made a vow, and I've always been very directional in my life. It's whether I was chasing chaos, I was very directional. In this life, I get to be very directional too. But back in that time, I was very directional, and when I had a plan or intentions, I made sure that they were going to happen. So I literally spent the next all of those years doing everything I could to hurt her in every way, and so. Oh man, right? It's
Yeah, it definitely. It got to the worst and worst.
So how about the kids during this time?
The kids, in the worst part of all of this, our kids were young teenagers, so they suffered too. You know, they suffered verbal abuse, you know, and some physical abuse, and they, you know, what they seen was, you know, mom always sticking up for them. There's times, you know, where he would be disciplining them, and I would step in, you know, so they seen a lot of division. They seen, you know, they seen a lot, you know, they dealt with a lot, and it was rough for them. I mean, it definitely affected them, and it's had, you know, it's damage, you know, in their lives. They see mom stick it out where, you know, she shouldn't have, I think, for them.
Okay, so what made you stick it out? What made you
Fear.
stay?
A lot of it was fear, because I knew just how, for lack of better words, psychotic he had become, how dangerous he had become. And it was more out of a protection for those around me, because his threats weren't just threats. You know, so, you know, when he would threaten and tell me if I left, you know, what he would do to other people, that was scary. You know, there was a time that I did leave, that the Lord did remove me, and, you know, but then the Lord brought me back. And I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people, but you would just have to understand that relationship with God. I learned that it wasn't about me. That's what the Lord taught me through it, you know, that he had me there for a purpose. He taught me so many things, showed me so many things, and it didn't matter whether I agreed with it or not, because me and the Lord had a lot of arguments, you know, a lot of arguments.
So during this time, when did your relationship with the Lord start strengthening?
Oh man.
Because it sounds like this was a way for him to draw you closer to him.
Absolutely, absolutely. Probably really started strengthening, and me really relying on God was probably about 4 or 5 years prior to God getting a hold of him. Definitely the past probably 2 years prior to God getting a hold of him, the Lord really started showing me how to fight for my marriage and how to fight for my family, and started giving me an understanding of the spiritual battle, and strengthening me, and really just teaching me what I needed to see, and teaching me how to see him through his eyes, because I didn't want to. You know, just transparent. I wanted to hate him.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to hate him. I wanted to leave. I didn't want to be there. My conversations with God sounded like me telling God I knew that wasn't the marriage that He designed, and so I didn't understand why. Why would you have me here? Why would you keep me here? Why, and but if you're gonna have me here, you better do something. You better do something, because this is not okay.
So, did you start reacting to him differently?
Yes.
And did you notice that?
I did.
Did you notice a change?
I did, and
So describe what your reaction was that was different than
So
what it would have been before.
Instead of arguing with him, I would start praying, which sometimes would escalate the situation.
Like
because,
right there in front of him?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, because light and dark don't mix, and so his spirit would be so agitated, when I would start doing that, and but it would cause a shift, and it would cause his spirit to have to calm down, and he didn't like that, so then he would just leave, and I would just look at him, no matter the physical, no matter what, my response started just looking straight at him and saying, I love you. I choose to love you. And that would be it. And sometimes that would, he didn't understand that at all. He thought I was saying something horrible, but that wasn't it. He didn't understand.
A lot of people don't understand, I don't say it that way. There's a difference between choosing to love somebody and loving somebody. Because at certain times, I'm sure what you felt for Ken was not love.
No.
That you chose to love him and to stay.
well, that was a lot of my confusion for me, because I felt that at that time, I felt that by her saying that she chose to love me, that there wasn't an emotion there, and I felt that love was.
So it made you feel like she didn't love you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like there was no, it wasn't an emotional love, right? And which I'm thankful that it wasn't, because, but I didn't know what love was. I mean, I didn't know how to love myself. I didn't know how to receive love, but I remember multiple times she would literally say those words, that I choose to love you. And back then I didn't understand that. I thought that was something that was negative in my life, but where's the feelings that you have for me? I mean, this is just something you're choosing to do.
Like, you just having pity on me?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was nothing about a connection to that. I mean, I was disconnected with the word love. I was disconnected, especially when she would say those words, that I choose to love you. Mm-hmm. And but I'm thankful now, knowing what I know now. I'm so thankful that she chose to love me through that, because it was that was real love. But it was, I didn't have the concept of what she was saying back then, and I think today she probably agrees. We both probably have a better understanding of what love really is. And
absolutely. Some of the best advice that I got, and this sounds crazy, but during that time, I would try and understand, what the drugs were, because my mindset was, if I don't understand, how can I help him? So I would ask questions to other addicts that would come around. Of course, we had to be very careful, because they weren't supposed to talk to me. That could go really bad really quick. Mm-hmm. And so at the times where I knew he wasn't really, like he was gone off the property or something, then I would find an opportunity to talk to a few of them that were willing to talk to me, and I would just start asking questions. And I know it sounds silly to some people to say that an addict was honest, but they were honest with me. They would explain it to me. They would tell me.
They're not. This is their thing. They're not having to lie to you to get something.
Exactly.
They're just explaining their everyday.
Yeah, what it did, how it made them feel, how it affected them, and so many times I would hear them say, I hate it. I hate doing it, but I can't quit. But some of the best advice I ever got was, there was one young man that he knew the Lord, and he said, April, you have to love him bigger than the addiction. And that just resonated with me. Like, it's so etched in my mind, those words, And And then, you know, I mean, even as an addict, he prayed with me. You know, he stood there, and, you know, after we spoke, and we prayed for him. You know, and so, I mean, I'll never forget that moment, you know, in those words. And so, you know, I mean, that was a game changer too. You know, I mean, that really gave me a different perspective.
So as a wife fighting for your marriage, what did your prayers sound like?
Oh, it's gonna make me cry.
Because I know there's women out there that are maybe not going through something as bad as you guys did, but everybody has their different levels of what they can take.
Right, yeah.
And they're probably at their wits' end, and they're like, you know, I don't even know what to say anymore.
Yeah.
I don't. A
And
lot of
that's-
us are raised that you can only say, you know, talk certain ways to God.
Right.
Oh Lord,
Yeah.
no. My conversations with God were very real, very raw, very, you know, I mean, he already knew what I was thinking anyway, you know, I mean, and so my conversations with God looked and sounded, you know, like me talking to a friend, because that's what he was. You know, I was so isolated at one point from people and from the outside, you know, I mean, that the Lord was really my only friend. And so our conversations, I mean, looked and sounded like that. But my prayers, you know, I would go to God and I would just plead his case. And just, you know, Lord, you know that if he turns his life to you, if he turns his heart to you, he's going to go all in. He's going to be this warrior for you, you know. And so you've got to do something, you know, and just pleading that, you know, the Lord would just put him at his rock bottom without harm, and just turn it around, you know, and protect him, you know, from the dope, from the ways of the world, and the, you know, just all the destruction, and just get him.
I remember probably about a year of being saved, she would always journal her prayers. And I remember this night, she brought this notebook to me, and she handed it to me, and I asked her what it was, and she said, just read it. So I opened it up, and it was literally her prayers that she was, in that moment, I really knew the love that she had for me. And I can picture her being on her knees, and I can picture her being broken for me, you know, and just telling God that if he would just do this for me on my behalf, that she just knows that there would be many people be saved. And this was literally a prayer, and it broke me. It put me in a place of not only appreciation, but it put me in a place to know that I must have some value. And that's really what has transpired and encouraged me, because I always have her prayers in the back of my mind. I literally read them word for word. There was times that I remember some of her prayers where it was prayers of thankfulness, because she must have been seeing something move, that God was working. But what to be in that moment, to be in that moment, for her to be praying for me the way that she was praying for me, I literally have a vision of that. And yeah.
In one of the prayers, when I went back and read it, there's a part in there where, you know, I asked God to help him to walk in his calling. That was not my mindset. You know, what I thought that it would look like if God got a hold of him was he would get saved, we would go to church, our house would be peaceful, the end. The end, like that was it.
Yeah.
That's what, in my mind, like that's what it was going to look like, you know. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Had no idea, you know, the whole purpose. I mean, I see it now. I see so many things now of the teachings that the Lord put in front of me in that time. Just so many things that he revealed to me, he showed me, he spoke to me, I didn't understand it then, but I do now, because had he not allowed me and encouraged me and just, helped me to walk through this time, there's no way that I could do what we do now. There's no way I could help these women. I wouldn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way I'd be able to relate to them, because I never did drugs. So I most certainly wouldn't have understood it. I most certainly wouldn't have been able to help anyone in that. My heart probably still would have had that mindset and that coldness of those people.
Yeah.
But the Lord just really did a number on me.
Isn't he amazing?
He is, he is,
Can't even put it into words.
Yeah.
Of just how good he is.
So Ken, take us to your turnaround point.
Oh Lord, this is
That's good.
So even at that time, there was, prior to, just a couple months prior to this, I had this great big plan that I was going to carry out. It was a murder-suicide. There was a lie going on in my life that was literally destroying me, and I literally felt I had no other option. But so about 3 days prior to me carrying out this plan, she had previously been praying that God would put me at rock bottom. But anyway, so I'm in the yard, and this is where it began. So I'm in the yard, and all of a sudden I see all kinds of state patrols and sheriff and all them pull into my yard and literally surrounded my house, and got taken to jail. And in that time I was, prior to this, the last 6 months of my addiction, I was shooting up probably 15 to 20 times a day, and I would sit there and cry for 2 or 3 hours, and I'd sit there and I'd do it again, and I just repeated this for the last 6 months of my life, and I just hated where I was at. But I got to jail, and I was dope sick. I was fighting and carrying on with some of the COs and cussing her out on the phone. And it was at that moment that when I slammed the phone down in that day room of that jail, that I went back to the cell and I slammed the door behind me. When I walked in, there was a Bible on the table, and I was 47 at the time. And at that time, I'd never read anything out of the Bible, 47. And I opened the Bible up, and it opened to a page. And I just began to read it, and it was out of Psalms 118. And at the top left-hand page, it started at verse 5, and I began to read. And it was me. It was my story. It was talking about victory. It was talking about how, at that time, the writer of that, I was surrounded, and they hated me. They wanted to kill me. In the words that I conquered them, I defeated them by the strong right arm of the Lord. And I remember when I got down to, which at that time I didn't know what a verse was. I didn't know what the book of Psalms was. But I got down to verse 17, and it said, "I will not die, but I shall live to tell what the Lord had done for me." And it just broke me. And I remember in that transition, I didn't know it was a transitioning period in my life either, but I remember at that moment that God spoke to me. God was speaking to me. And I remember that I hit my knees. I began to cry out to the Lord, and I told God, I said, "God, if you're real," and I don't even know what the theatricals must have looked like, for lack of better words, but I literally just began to cry and shout out to God. And I remember telling him, "God, if you're so powerful, God, if you're real, I need you to show me. I need you to prove it to me." And so I was literally in there for probably a good 2 hours, just crying to the Lord. I'm literally next to a toilet, and I really believe that Jesus Christ entered that jail cell that day and began to change me. But the guy I was when I went in, and when I came out, I was different. The language was gone, the anger was gone, the dope sickness was gone. And when I came out, I'd asked the guys, "Who wanted to have a Bible study?" And all these other inmates were like looking at me and like, "Who is that?" Because that's not the same guy that went in there. And but so from that, it was a couple amazing experiences that I got to experience with the Lord. But my prayer, God, if you're this, God, if you're that. And so for the next month or two, I just began to read the Word, and I kept falling in love with the Lord. And I didn't have nobody to teach me. It was I didn't know that the Holy Spirit was there with me and teaching me. I didn't know all this stuff, right? So there was this day when the sales came in and said there was this lady by the name of Rita that came in and said she had a video she wanted to show us. But I had this drawing. I just had this, whatever it was at the time, I didn't know, but it was the Lord drawing me to go watch this video. So I go in and I'm watching it, and it's a video by Louis Giglio. It's called Indescribable. Mm-hmm. And it's talking about how big God is. It's talking about how mighty God is. And I remember that it was at that time that I knew that God heard me, and then God answered me. I remember being in a circle of other inmates, and I'm just a wreck, and I got my arms in the air. I didn't even know why I did, but I just knew there was something changing in the air. I just knew it, and so I'm just like all jacked up on Jesus. I mean, I'm just like a mess, right? And I'm excited, and I didn't know what was going on. I just knew God was doing something, and so I'm excited to go back to the jail cell, and I'm calling April. I want to tell her to go online simply to watch this video. I wanted to encourage her and to inspire her because I knew her faith. But I go back and I call her, and she's crying, and for a couple minutes she's not even able to speak. And in my mind, I'm like, now what? Right? Now what's going on? But finally she spoke, and she said, how would you like it? She said, it's over. And I'm like, what's over? What's over? And she's not even able to speak. And I'm thinking she's telling me that our marriage is over.
Oh, no.
That all these things are going on. And I'm like, what's over? And she says, it's over. She said, how would you like to be home in an hour? I'm like, how's that even possible? I'm in jail on a KPS bond, and it wouldn't have mattered if I had $1 million, whatever. I knew that it wasn't possible. And she said, how would you like to be home? And I said, that'd be awesome, right? I mean, of course I want to come home, and she said, I'm on my way to come pick you up. And knowing the system the way that I knew it, but I didn't quite know God quite well, that well yet. But I believe that day God spoke and said, let my son out. Let my son go. And, but I had some other amazing experiences while I was locked up. I was more free than I'd ever been free in my whole entire life. And anyway, I remember in that moment that I was I had all kinds of food and stuff while I was locked down, but I remember all the other guys. I would remember running through that jail, picking all these men up, and I would tell them, God did this for me, God will do it for you. And I would go to the next guy and I'd tell him the same thing. But God has encouraged me, and He's inspired me. He saved me, but we've been on this. It's just that's just a little bit of what the turning the redemption story looks like, and for God to be able to take a guy like me and to be able to change me the way He did. It's been an amazing ride, right? I mean,
right?
There's so much to the testimony. There's so much to what God's done in our lives in 6 years. But it's been amazing. I don't know. I don't have the capabilities of putting into words what God's done. Just in a moment, I literally didn't know how to pray. I didn't even know I was praying. I just knew. It's pretty cool to find out now that's literally what I was doing.
I remember,
and
yeah.
it was cool that the experience that He's allowed me to have with Him, but looking back now, knowing that it didn't matter where I came from, that the God that's created everything, that He loved me, And when I finally understood that he heard me and he's listening, and then he just did what God knew.
After the Lord got a hold of him, I mean, I remember before too, but I remember after the Lord got a hold of him, um, he didn't know how to pray. So when he would call me, he would tell me like, this person has this or this person has that, or can you write a prayer for me, and so I would, and then he would, when he would call back, I would share that, with him, and so it got to be, because I would share these daily devotions with him when he would call, and just these little God things, and it got to be where there was this, I don't even know because I wasn't there, but this you could tell there was a group of men that were around the phone, listening, like it was it was like a highlight of their time in there, and
Cool.
and so when he would call, it was like, do you have that devotion? Do you have a devotional today? And so, that was really cool. I mean, that I not only, look at, and I kind of forgot about that really until just now, that I not only got, to share that with him, but apparently, plant some seeds as well in others, and without even realizing it.
Yeah, there was always, any time that I was going to the phone, it got to a point after I encountered Jesus that every time I was going to the phone,
You weren't able to talk to her alone, were you?
No, there was never none of that. It was pretty cool. That the guys would they would come up and because they knew that. And looking back now, sometimes it wasn't even a Bible verse. It was just a word of encouragement. And to be able to have life spoken into you, the way that it was being done at that time. Was just, it didn't just change my life. I believe it's affected other men's life too, the guys that were there. So it's been, but yeah, that's just a little bit of the transformation story. But anyway.
So tell us about now and about your discipleship programs and.
Well, now the biggest thing I'm the most proud of is that I know that I am a child of God, and that being saved is huge to me. But now I get to be the spiritual leader of our home. I get to be a man of God. I get to be a godly husband. I get to serve. But today we're a pastor of the Renovation Church in Mount Grove. We have a street church ministry. We have a multitude of men and women that we get to disciple through the Big Boy Men's Ministry, through the Abundant Grace Ministry, it's a ladies' house. But and just being, what an honor it is to be able to help rebuild a community that what I once was part of, to be able to help rebuild our communities and lives of other people.
And so, have you been able to witness to and lead guys to the Lord that you used to do drugs with?
Yes, so it's pretty cool that in the old life, people followed me. They would have followed me wherever, but today there's some of those guys that it's got nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with what God's done. But it's been an amazing journey that there are people now from my past life that now are saved and born again and doing what God's called them to do too. So. What a blessing.
So if somebody was to need help or was looking, to get into the program or has family that might benefit from the program, how would they contact you guys?
So listen, they can go on Facebook. It's
each ministry has its own page on Facebook, so they can find us there.
Big Boy Men's Ministry and
Yes.
Abundant Grace Ministry.
So listen, my number is 417-217-5843. I'm always available. I don't care about the hour of the day. They can just call, look us up on Facebook. But it's pretty simple to get a hold of us. So.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's wrap this up. Ken, I want you to look right in the camera there and give people leave them with your last message for them.
Well, it's going to be.
You're a preacher. It won't be hard.
It's going to be. How much time do I have? Listen, I would just want to make it very easy and practical for you. It doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter how far you've ran. It doesn't matter what people have spoken into you. If it's not to build you up, it's a lie from the enemy. But I want to tell you what God says about you today. That God loves you. He has died for you. The Bible says, yet while you were still a sinner, so while you're still in your addiction, your mess, wherever it's at, Jesus Christ loves you. And it doesn't matter where you've gone, how far you've gone. I want to tell you today that there's hope in the Lord Jesus Christ. And I would encourage you to, no matter where you're from, where you're at, to reach out. I would love to talk to you. And the greatest thing is God has amazing plans for you. You don't have to live that way no more. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. I want to tell you today, I don't know who you are, but I love you. We love you, and I know that Jesus loves you. So I just want to encourage you to reach out and see what God has for you, because they're good plans. I promise you that.
Amen.
So.